Burton here from StellaCulinary.com, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make some delicious, freshly fried, brioche-based donuts. And they are so delicious, and the great thing is they're based on our hamburger bun recipe. In fact, the dough formulation is exactly the same as I demonstrated in a previous video. So this makes our brioche bun recipe even more versatile. Now, in our previous video, I showed you how to both mix using a stand mixer and also mix using hand kneading. So if you have any questions on that, you can just refer to this episode's show notes. Both of those videos will be there, including this dough's recipe. Now, whether or not you mix and knead the dough by hand as shown here, or in a stand-top mixer, we have videos on both of these techniques. You want to just mix it until it can pass what's called the window pane test, which means the dough is sturdy enough to where when you stretch a small piece of it, you can stretch it so that it forms a thin membrane without tearing, and a ray of light can shine through it. So this is called the window pane test, and it shows you that your dough has good structural integrity. At this point, you want to round the dough and place in a plastic container prepped with non-stick spray, because this is a pretty sticky dough. Cover with plastic wrap or a lid and allow to bulk ferment overnight in your refrigerator. And this is going to give you a more complex flavor and make this rich dough easier to handle. Now here I'm scaling the dough into 75-gram pieces, which is going to yield a large donut. And I'm going to round on my cutting board just by taking my hand and making a rounding motion while trying to press the dough through the table. It's going to be a nice, tightly rounded piece of dough. Now I'm going to place plastic wrap over the top and allow this dough to bench rest, which is going to make it easier to handle. It's going to relax the gluten structure in these individual pieces of dough and allow me to stretch them into a donut shape. Now, once the dough has been allowed to relax for about 10 minutes, you want to come back with the palm of your hand and flatten the dough into discs. Once all the discs have been formed, come back with the tip of a paring knife or utility knife and poke a hole right in the center. This is going to make it easier for you to stick your fingers through that hole and then gently stretch that piece of dough into a donut shape. Now, I prefer this method over using a ring cutter because this yields all donuts. So when you use ring cutters or molds, it's going to give you less of a yield. You are going to have some scraps left over. Now, admittedly, pulling them by hand like this gives you a more rustic look, and the ring cutters will give you a cleaner look. But to me, I think this looks fine. Now, after the donuts have been formed, you just want to place them onto a sheet tray lined with parchment paper and sprayed with non-stick spray. Because again, this is a sticky dough. And allow these to proof at room temperature for an hour and a half to 2 hours or until they've doubled in size. Or place them in your fridge and allow them to proof overnight. And I actually prefer them to proof overnight because they're cold. Now here I have proofed these donuts at room temperature, and you'll notice that there are some finger indentations in this dough because it's very fragile at room temperature. So if you proof these overnight in the refrigerator, when you pull them out and you work with them cold and drop them into the fryer, they're going to be easier to handle. The donuts are fried at 375 degrees Fahrenheit for about 90 seconds on each side, or until both sides are a medium golden brown. And here I just have some long wooden chopsticks that makes it a lot easier to flip the donuts and then pull them from the frying oil when they're done. Now you want to drain the donuts onto a sheet tray lined with some paper towels and flipping them over, just dabbing off the excess oil so that way the donuts aren't super greasy. And then from here, it is time to glaze with your favorite glaze. So here we have classic maple glaze, which I have a recipe for in this episode's show notes. We also have a chocolate ganache glaze, which we have a recipe for in this show notes. Or you can go super classic and just dust your freshly fried brioche donuts with a mixture of cinnamon sugar, which I have a ratio for this as well in the show notes if you have any questions on that. Now notice how I'm placing them on a wire rack, that way they can cool and set before you eat them. And of course, chocolate donuts just do not taste the same unless you sprinkle with some multicolor sugar sprinkles on top. So there you have it, freshly fried brioche donuts. Nothing is better, and it's actually a very simple recipe. For this recipe and for the glaze recipes, head on over to this episode's show notes at stellaculinary.com/SB12.